Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, From Resistance to Resilience, Mastering the Human Side of Change, presented by our Director of Business Solutions here at Educate 360, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting in moderating today's session. We are on Zoom for today's session, and we will be emailing you a copy of the recording after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 and Watermark Learning are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so much, Mariella. Well, happy Friday, everyone. My favorite day of the week. I was figuring everything going downhill. So today we're going to talk about from resistance to resilience. We're talking about mastering the human side of change. So we're going to try and keep this presentation simple. We're also going to try and give you a few techniques to take away with you. So it's not just about listening, and we'll have a few exercises thrown in there. So I'm going to make you work for it a little bit. Nothing serious, nothing too heavy. So why are we even talking about this? Because it's happening all around us. But why does this matter? And hopefully this is why you're here too, is because we look at all of our change initiatives going on in our organizations, right? Educate 360 is no different. We have lots of changes going on, as every company that I talk to has things going on. But it's not because of strategy. It's not because we didn't have a project plan. Initiatives fail because we forget the human response to the change. So we do everything, we get the requirements, we make the perfect project plan, whether it's agile, whether it's waterfall, it doesn't make any difference. We've got a strategy, we know where we're going, and we don't get the value we thought we were going to get, or it doesn't work out, or that's what they said they wanted, but not really. And, yeah, it was a good idea, but people don't seem to be adjusting to it. So it's the human response that we are going to be talking about today. And so the challenge is kind of figuring out, how are people feeling? How are they reacting, and behaving? Because if we don't address the human side, no matter what you do as far as planning and having the right requirements and everything else, it's not going to do as well as you thought. Or sometimes, and I've seen in many organizations, I've been a consultant a long time, it falls through, it doesn't get implemented. Or if it gets implemented, it's a disaster. So we want to look at, what are the emotions, the habits, the mindset? What things do we need to do and look for to make sure we're successful? So there's really two pieces to the project. There's the project itself, but it's the human reaction to the project. Are people going to adjust to the change that they need? And so that's what we're going to talk about. And you all know the reality of today. I say this every year. It's like, wow, change is coming faster and faster and faster, like the speed of light, and I don't know about you, but I'm just curious. You can throw it in the chat or raise your hand. But does anybody feel like it's going faster? And it's like, wow, there's a constant change and disruption. It's not just one change or two changes, it's the compilation of a lot of change, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So if anyone else feels like that, yes, Karen, especially with AI, that's so true. So not only do we have our regular changes, now AI comes and we're not sure what to do with it, or how are we supposed to, incorporate it into our work. And, I'm thinking that a lot of people will probably agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Work week, 60 hours, 7 days a week, no days off. Holy cow. We do sometimes need a break. So we got all this change, this disruption, that adds to it. And it's no longer occasional. It's like, oh yeah, we'll be up to the change. It's continuous. Does anybody feel like they're the gerbil in the gerbil wheel, you know? You think you're going to slow down and then it just keeps on going faster and faster and faster. And that's what we seem to be living in today. And so how do we deal with that? So I'm curious. This is, like I said, this is going to have a few little short exercises in here. And I want you to put it in the chat. Think of a recent change. It could be, oh, AI's been introduced. Like, okay, what does that mean for me? It could be maybe you were restructured. It could be a new software system, whatever it is. So what was your first reaction? Because sometimes my reaction, is like, well, what? What are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Stop the presses, just give me a second to get, caught up. And then what made it easier or harder to adapt? So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to put it in the chat. Love to hear from some of you. Yeah, oh no, not again. I love that. My first reaction is, oh no. And that's a lot of times my first reaction. Here we go again. All right, this is a new silver bullet, which I think that's how they bring in AI. Oh, new silver bullet. We got to keep up with the competition, but we don't know what we're going to do with it yet. um, yeah, how does this impact my team? Yes, how are they going to react? Are they going to be positive? Are they going to be negative? I have to work with them. Um, was good at getting something new, but now when we get into it, it becomes more difficult to adapt since, rollout is without the kinks out, which is so true, right? It'd be nice if it would just go smoothly, new supervisor. Has this been thought through? Don't you sometimes, want to think that's like, have you guys been thinking about this for a while? Karen, time made it easier. And the ability to engage. That's so true. Reorg, curiosity, lack of communication, transparency. Lots of questions. We have lots of questions, and so where we can get some answers and how we can help ourselves and help others, those are some of the things that we want to certainly be able to take a look at as we move forward. So at the end of the session, there's going to be a couple things that I'd like to get through and to cover. And this isn't about change theory. I'm not going to fill you with a lot of theory and a lot of other stuff. It's really about, hey, what can we do in the trenches? Here we are. Now, where do we go? And so I want to make sure that we talk about and really talk about some clear outcomes. How do you tie this to your real life? What are a few things that you can take back with you that say, yeah, I can use this. So we're going to really talk about three items here. One is we got to understand the human response to change. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that in the first section. Our second section is going to talk about, wow, how do we reframe change in our minds? How do we look at it a little bit differently? How do we build agency? If you've heard that word, we'll talk about what agency means. And then how to build resilience, for ourselves and for others. And so those are the things that I'd like to talk to you about today as we kind of move forward. So the first one, as I said, what is a human response to change? And sometimes it's always interesting because I've worked with change a very long time. How I got interested in this is that I was working on a software project and was really excited, had worked on it for months, months and months, and I give it to the end users and the stakeholders, and I'm so excited about it, and they aren't. It's like, what? This is really cool. It's gonna make your life easier. Oh my gosh, you're gonna, and they just look at me like, Susan, really? So it's like, wait a minute here. I'm so excited, but they're not. Well, maybe they just don't like change. But that's not true. It's people who don't like. Yeah, we usually respond with a lot of resistance. You're absolutely right. So let's talk a little bit about getting kind of our bearings. We'll set the table here a little bit. Change versus the human experience about change. Okay, change is an event and it's external to us. It's an external event. Something happened. So somebody made a decision, somebody just told us we're reorging or we're using AI or we're, whatever the change was. Either where we hear it, it gets implemented, boom, it's there. It's a time, it's a date. Our response, our personal response is internal. It's internal. It's that emotional component of it. It's our thinking about it. It's like, well, wait, what are we doing? What does this mean to me? And so I used to think that just some people, just didn't like change. But it really isn't about people don't like the change, or resist the change. They resist uncertainty. I don't know about this. How is it going to impact me? How is it going to impact my team? What am I supposed to do now? Will I have a job? I mean, every time there's changes, don't you kind of think about those things, right? And so we kind of figuring out how is the event? The event is the, again, point in time, but it's our emotional response. It's like, why am I feeling that? I'm feeling a little queasy. I'm feeling a little complex. And so some of our emotional reactions to change are like, maybe I'm a little bit fearful. It's like, I don't know what that means. Will I have a job at the end of the day? They say AI is taking over everything. I might have some frustration. It's like, oh gosh, here they go again, silver bullet. And all of these things I've heard over the years that I've been working with change. People are confused. Is this good? Is this bad? Because think about the emotional intensity. So when we get a change, external change at us, it's kind of like we're in that fight or flight. It's like, what do I do with this? This is new information. Should I get excited? Should I not get excited? Should I watch out? I mean, our bodies are trying to figure that whole thing out in our brains. It's like, what is going on? So there's a lot of confusion. Does anybody feel like confused a lot of times when a change comes? It's like, wait, stop the presses. Where did this come from? Why are we doing it? You know, if you felt any of the things, you're human. We're a package. We're a package deal. And as much as we think, oh, we can put our emotions to the side and just deal with the data, it comes together. We can't separate them. So I'm kind of curious as, loss of control. So what have been some of your emotional reactions to change or ones that you've seen other people? When the corporation tells you a change and may not, you may ask, what are they not telling us, right? And the interesting thing, having worked on many, many projects over the years, we don't know what we don't know. But then you certainly feel like, okay, what are you not saying? I agree with that. Any other thoughts about that? I'd like to see some others because, do you feel like I have a thing about loss of control? And the funny thing is control is mostly in my imagination. I think I have control over a lot of things. I have control probably absolutely nothing, but I'd like to feel that way. Cynicism, eye rolling, yes. The flavor of the week. Have you ever heard that? That is so huge. I'm being micromanaged. Isn't that true? Yeah, mistrust, so we have those emotions, and normally our first reaction tends to be, I would say, a little bit more on more of a negative emotion versus a positive. Although we can be excited about it too, but most of the time we have to go, okay, I might get excited about this, but what is it? So we're just trying to figure that out. And then emotional reactions, the internal emotions we have are going to come out somehow, right? And you've seen this maybe in yourself, you've seen it in others, and so we have some behavioral, because that's how we know people are resistant, right? The behavioral observable reactions to resistance. So you might have people who are going to say, I'm not listening. You can tell, all you want. Might be avoiding. Maybe I'm avoiding it. It's like I got too much on my plate. I'm not going to deal with it. Or maybe a little procrastination. Anybody procrastination, deal with it later. You might see patterns of over questioning. Lots of questions. That's probably me. Ah, you have so many questions. Well, yeah, I want to know. I got to get this down so that I can understand what it means to me. Um, Denial. Thank you, Donna. Yep. And then we tend to what? We want to find our comfort level. And a lot of times when there's resistance, we'd like to go back to our old habits. And so back to the old things we knew and how to do it and how to, I used to come to work knowing what to do. Now, now I don't, or I had the old system down and now, I have to figure this out. It takes so much more time. I could do it 3 times as fast. I could do it in my sleep. Now I gotta go, oh, this takes too darn long. Been through some of that. Passive disengagement. Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to find ways to, a lot of times people find ways to do it like they did it in the past. This is the way we've always done it. I'm very comfortable. If it ain't broke, don't change it. So we see resistance with others through their actions, through their behaviors. Maybe they were really talkative and now they're really quiet. Maybe they have a lot of questions, so it can be overt or covert, and sometimes you really have to watch the covert. And then noticing ourselves as well. What questions do I have? What emotions am I feeling? And thinking about that. Oh, we have end users resisting a change to get them off green screens. Yeah, it's just like, oh, yeah, you think, oh, God, they should be really excited about that, right? And it's like, yeah, and then because change is external implies we weren't on board with the change. We don't own it. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yep, yep. And then have zero say. And it's like hey, we're just trying to figure this out. So resistance always happens. There is not a change in any personal change, work change. We always have resistance. It comes with us. Whether it's 5 minutes, however, or 5 years makes a difference. So how do we help ourselves? How do we help people make it shorter amount of time versus, forever or the 5 years? So looking at that. So why resistant hap? Why does it happen? It's not certain anymore. We came to work. We don't know how to do our job. We used to do it really quickly. We don't maybe know how to work with. I've been here at Educate 360 for 6 years. I've had 4 bosses. Every boss has their own personality. Every boss has a different way of working, And so even having a new boss, you think, oh, so I got a new boss. And you know that if you've got new bosses, you got to establish your working relationship with them, right? So there might be a little resistance going, oh, I kind of like the last one I had. Now I got to learn somebody new. Loss of competence, right? Man, I could do it in my sleep. Now I can't. Now I got to think about it. That happens even when Microsoft changes some of its simple applications, like, okay, it was right on the menu bar. Now, where did you put it? Anytime they have an upgrade, to whether it's just Microsoft email or Teams or whatever application it is, they say, oh, well, people must not be using this much, and then they hide it, and then you got to go find it. So, I mean, it can be as simple as that. Lack of clarity. I want to know why. One of my bosses, when I was hired, says, what do I need to know about you? And I said, I'll do a lot of stuff, but I got to know why. Just tell me why. So a lot of times, though, people and executives and our managers, our directors, our bosses aren't really good at why, or maybe they don't know why, so they can't tell you why, or past experiences like, oh, here we go again. I've been in some organizations where, because I said I was consulting, third consultant coming in, and they said, oh, well, we'll just wait you out. We're just very happy. We're not going to do this project. We're just going to wait you out. You're the third consultant we had in. I dare you to make me change. and I just kind of laughed. And he was kind of taken back because it's like, okay, I accept that challenge. We did get it through. But it's listening to the resistance, watching for the resistance. Resistance is a piece of information, but it happens because we get comfortable, we don't understand what it is, maybe we don't feel as, fast as it used to be. So resistance, here's a key insight for you. Resistance isn't the problem. Oh, they're just being resistant. They're just being negative, Nelly. Resistance is information that someone needs something. And this was really critical for me. It's like, because I was thinking resistance is, oh, they're just being a pain. Oh, they're just not, you know, they're just being difficult. My friend would always say to me, oh, suck it up, buttercup. Yeah, like that's so helpful. So, so kind of thinking about, and then when I got this information a while ago, and it's like, wow, resistance is a signal. So, and then it's a signal for me. Am I being resistant? I've been kind of, snippy lately. Where's that coming from? Oh, I might have a little bit of resistance. Or so and so is just really awfully quiet, and they're usually never quiet. What's going on? It's a sign. And so you're able to understand and talk to yourself or talk to the others and say, hey, what's going on? Because there's something going on. If they're not acting like their normal self, if you're not acting like your normal self and you're going like, wow, where did that come from? Maybe it's a form of resistance. And so it's just information for us to say, hey, there's something different. How are we going to approach that? How are we going to help people through resistance? How am I going to help myself? So I'm going to ask you this next question is think of a time when you saw resistance, and it could have been today. What was it signaling? What do you think it's signaling to us? Yeah, it helps us to think about the people in the gaps. Instead of attacking the messenger, I love that, Donald. That is great. Yeah. Because it's so easy to just say, oh, that's just them. They don't like change. They don't, they're just negative Nellies, whatever. And we label that. I've heard people labeling other people, and it's just like, just maybe we need just to stop. Maybe they just need to say something. Sometimes people are really resistant, and you ask them, and they just go, but then they're fine, because they just wanted somebody to hear them, right? Yeah, signaling you're asking too much. Slow down. Let us get things done before the next. That is so true. A signal with a lack of engagement with end users. Yeah. Maybe we didn't get a clear message out. Maybe we didn't explain the why. It's one of those things that, well, the management said we had to do it. So, I mean, that doesn't help. Bringing people in, being able to listen to them as much as you can. So it is signaling something. And even in yourself, if you catch yourself going, oh, well, I need to know a little bit more about that. So moving on. So that's just the base. I wanted to give you a little bit of base. So now we're going to talk about, okay, how do we reframe? How do we reframe the change in our heads? And how do we build agency? So one of the things we can do is shift our mindset. Okay. So instead of playing, the victim, which it's sometimes I'll raise my hand too. It's just like, oh my gosh, stop, because it's just like so much going on. So rather than saying, okay, this is happening to me, what can I influence? What can I control? So we can't control the change is going to probably come whether we like it or not. But what I can control is myself. I can control my response rather than getting, argumentative or whatever else or losing control. Yeah, Jacqueline. I can say, hey, I can respond differently. I can't control anybody else. And like I said, I'm a control freak, so I'd like to think I can, but I have really no control over much, except myself. I can control my own responses and say, "Hey, Susan, do you really want to respond that way?" And so being able to shift that mind, saying, I know I'm going to be resistant because we all are. It's part of being human. How do I shorten that? Or what do I need to make me feel a little bit more comfortable? Do I need to know the why? Do I need to, what additional information do I need that I can control my response? So that brings us to personal agency. Um, Personal agency is kind of self-awareness, the capacity to act and making our actions intentionable, rather than us just reacting. We have control over that. It's behavior. So it's having personal agency is being more proactive and not just passive and getting myself into trouble and letting whatever I'm thinking, the first thought I'm thinking come out. But it's sitting back and saying, hey, Susan, you need to think about this a little bit more, you know? So focusing on, okay, I have a choice in which to respond, what actions am I modeling? So I have to think about, okay, what is in my control and what is not in my control. And that has made all the difference, at least for me. It's like, okay, there's a lot of things I can't control. As much as I would like to, I can't. So I'm sort of saying can't control all this, but I can control this. And if nothing else, I can control myself. And it just gives me a little bit of, okay, I do have some control. I'm not slipping out of control, you know? And so kind of figuring out what step do I need to take? What's my next step? Where do I want to focus my energy? How do I want to think about this? And so having personal agency is huge. I don't have to be passive to this change. I can be proactive and say, how am I going to respond to the change and help others build their personal agency? Because at least there's comfort in going, okay, I have a little bit of control in my life. I can control how I can drive to work, or I can control how I want to be perceived, or I can, get a hold of my emotions. So that's personal agency. The other thing that will help us is our EQ. You've probably heard this. It's been around for a long time, but it bears kind of reflection here a little bit because it's really what we need. It's not our, you know, um, intelligence. It's our emotional intelligence. Being self-aware. Can we recognize our actions and our reactions? It's like, ooh, I don't want to do that. Catching them before they come. Um, so awareness, self-awareness creates choice, creates us choices. And think about, well, we can control our choices. So how do we want to be? How do we want to show up? How do we want to respond? Self-management. And I actually have a little sticker on my note because sometimes I have, kind of spouted off before I get the whole gist. I'm going to say that as much as I try to walk on water, I sink, except I live in Minnesota, so I can walk on water in the wintertime, but only thing that counts. So be pausing before I respond, and so it's like, okay, Susan, think before you respond. How do you want to respond with this? And then having empathy, understanding others. Are there some obvious, behavior things that are going on that you can say, gee, I think Jill is kind of a little bit resistant. Maybe I need to talk to Jill, or maybe I talk to Bill, or wherever I'm working with. So I'm kind of thinking about that. And then being able to, and this is really key. I use this with my clients a lot. It's a reframing technique. Reframe our mindset. Reframe what we're thinking about. And anytime there's always positive and negative thoughts going through our head, And so there's lots of pluses, there's lots of minuses, we kind of are figuring them out. But what if instead of the negatives taking over, which is really easy to take over, what if we let the positives, replacing our assumptions that, oh, they're doing it to us because they don't like us. What questions might I want to ask? Focusing, oh, you know what? Maybe this is an opportunity. This restructures an opportunity, maybe meet new people, maybe be able to move up the ladder. If nothing else, build my skill set, you know, um, taking those steps to say, let's break this in little pieces. This is kind of your project manager hat, you can't eat an elephant in one piece. Not that I would ever eat an elephant anyway, but the old saying goes, what are those steps that I can take to move forward? What are those quick wins? What can I celebrate? Because it gets so overwhelming. I don't know about you, but don't you feel like sometimes you're just overwhelmed and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm going to go crazy. And then it's like, okay, back up, take a deep breath, and then just say, what steps am I going to take? I can take this, and then I can do this, and then do this. And rather than, trying to bite it off all at once, because it's just not possible. What can we do to chunk it out? And then putting one foot in front of the other. Okay, I'm going to take this step first, then I'm going to take this step, then I'm going to take this step, and then I'm going to take this step. So it's not so overwhelming. So just trying to reframe those thoughts going, oh my gosh, I feel like it's a big boulder gonna, drop on top of me. What if I put it into little sand particles? What can I do with at least a bucket of sand versus the big boulder? And make it smaller, and then rethink. It's like, okay, I think this change is going to be negative, but what if, because I do this with my clients, I said, you got to give me one positive. What is the one positive thing about this change? And a lot of times they'll be grudgingly, nothing. I don't like it. It's like, gotta give me one. And, begrudgingly, they finally say, okay, fine. And then they do one. And then all of a sudden they go, well, maybe they give me two, and what am I doing? I'm helping them reframe their mind. The negative is still there, but let's focus on the positive. There's going to be negative and positive over anything you do. Whether you're moving across country, you got a new job, you changed houses, whatever. So it's always there. But what do we really want to focus on? And when you start thinking about the positives, more positives come about. And then being able to kind of move on. And yeah, being overwhelmed on multiple projects, different stages. Yeah, that is so true. Internalizing this change. So it's just, yeah, it's okay. I can choose to be negative, or I can choose what are the positives. So sometimes I have to ask myself, okay, write down 3 positives about this change. Okay. Because sometimes the act of writing it down, some people have just kind of a notebook or something that they keep, and a journal, sometimes just reframe what's in your mind before you get lost in all the negativity. And so that builds, into an opportunity. We need balanced thinking. It's not toxic positively. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to have rose-colored glasses on. Everything is a bed of roses, the Pollyanna effect, because it's reality we got to deal with. But kind of thinking about, okay, we know there's going to be challenges, but there's always opportunities as well. So being able to kind of balance, or at least think about, it's not all negative. What are the opportunities? What can you learn? How can this strengthen me and my team? AI is coming. Well, maybe it'll build new skill sets. Maybe it'll make my life easier if I can find a way, because I know there's some organizations where um, people are getting excited about how they can take this new technology and bring it into their work life and say, hey, what can you do with this? I know we've done that even at Educate 360. How can I use this? And we've been getting really creative on some ways to use AI because at first it's like, really, really? And it wasn't too excited. It's like, okay, it's an opportunity. I love learning. So, put your learning hat on, Susan. But then thinking about maybe this is an opportunity for me to redefine my processes or to do something faster. I mean, we teach a lot of certifications. One of the things I love is that AI can write tons of certification questions faster than I can. I certainly have to still review them because a couple times they kind of went off the, earth, um, but it's a lot faster. And when I'm trying to think about, God, what would be a great exercise here? I just go, okay, what do you think? And, sometimes they're just dumb, but sometimes they have great ideas. I go, oh, I like that one. I'm going to try that idea, and it's just a lot faster than me just contemplating. Well, let's see what kind of exercise we want it. Because I would do the same, things over and over again because that's what I knew. And it's like now I got the opportunity, create a scenario for me. What scenario would be really great here for the students to work on? There it is. 2 seconds. I love that. It's made my life so much easier and faster. New learning, but I had to learn that, what prompts are going to work, what prompts get me absolutely nowhere. And realizing that, you can ask AI 3 times or chat GBT 3 times and you get different answers and realizing that happens. So, but, so kind of thinking to myself, what does this change improve? How does it make my life easier? I can learn a new skill set, so taking that into an opportunity. So I want you to, for those of you who are willing to put in the chat, what is a current challenge you are facing around a change? What is the one opportunity in it and one thing you can control? Because we were just talking about seeing things as opportunities instead of the negative. And is there something you can control? Because then that just says, oh, okay, I'm okay. I can breathe. I can control this. But yeah, and let the things you can't control, saying, all right, somebody else has got that. I can't do anything about it. So I'm not going to fixate on it. So curious. So yeah, I'd like a couple responses in the chat if you could. Because I think in this day and age, we all need to help each other. We all need to support each other because it's coming fast and furious, whether we like it or not. Yeah, implementation, creating good training materials. Yes. Doing something faster. Yeah. I also can choose how much I use AI, where and when to try it. I love that, Karen. Yeah, our team is working on a new PM tool, trying to learn the new tool along with using AI to create. Oh, great, Donna. Donald, changing priorities from our prime contractor. Um, Certainly looking at that. I gotta keep going here. There's a lot. Yeah, what we control is a request revision to schedule with a 1 month delay. Yeah, it's just figuring out what can we control. Many organizational changes, retiring personnel. Yeah, that's for sure. You can control your own response. Yep, and opposition to it. Yeah, AI is overwhelming. It's just like, okay, let's take this in a small amount. What can I do? Just a little bit, and then a little bit more and a little bit more. Because we all learned. I mean, look at all the technology we use now, and it's amazing. We didn't have that 15, 20 years ago. Resolving long-standing issue control, being present and participating, opportunity, yes. So like make some overdue needed changes. What I can control is educating myself on new technology, how I use it. Challenge with the current project to implement with clinicians. Yeah. Patient safety. That is huge. What can we do to make that even better? Yeah, remaining marketable. Yes, Jan. Absolutely. So that is huge. So just kind of trying to think about, okay, what do I have control over and what do I need to move on? So this next section, of course, is building resiliency. How do we change our habits around change? And resiliency is the ability to adapt. There we go. We're not adopting anything, adapting, moving forward, recovering a little bit faster. Here's the thing, is resiliency isn't going to mean that we don't have emotions, that we don't get stressed out about things. What it will do is help us deal with it better. Okay. And so it's not about toughness. Oh, I'm going to just, tough it up and, suck it up, buttercup. It's about adaptability, being able to move forward. Resilience too is also, I want to just really point out, a skill. Sometimes we feel like, I'll speak for myself, feel like, oh, well, they just have it easy, or they just are so resilient, or they can just, take everything in stride. No, it's a skill. A skill that some people maybe have better than me at the moment, but I can learn it. It's not a personal trait. It doesn't come with you, when you're born, except for the fact that we all have resiliency because we were born. But I mean, we can build it stronger and certainly better. And so one of those things that we want to look at is having resiliency as a habit, as a habit. So I always thought it took, usually they said, oh, it's 30 days to change a habit. You know, I think it's longer. So I started doing some research on it because it was like, I'm pretty good for 30 days. And then I fall off the wagon. The same thing when gym memberships, there's a gym by me. And, in the week of January, or I would say the whole month of January, it's, you couldn't even find a parking space. Everybody's there, and then February, a little bit less. By the time March comes, everybody, oh, it's nice outside. I'm going to go for a walk or whatever it is. So it takes time to build that habit. And so focusing on, okay, what habits do I want to change? We might have to stay flexible and adaptable at the same time, but learn, get feedback on those habits. What has served me well? What has not served me well? And it's really about small habits create that long-term stability because it's, you can if you try and do it all at once, it just I find personally, and maybe you have found in your world too, it's easier to do it little by little, you know, because most of the time our habits, we can't just turn off the old stuff and turn on the new stuff. In most cases, we've got to just say, okay, let's take this in little bits. Let's take our caffeine in little bits, and being able to kind of maintain that perspective. Just want to get my chat back. I lost it somewhere. There we go. And then leading ourselves through change. People take cues from around us and how we show up. Our families do that. Our colleagues do that. And so thinking about, okay, if I'm going to be a good role model, how do I want to portray myself? You know, and to be one of the things you have to do when you are a role model, of course, is be true to yourself. You acknowledge that, you have some uncertainties too. We all do. But what are our priorities? How can I reframe my thinking? How can, instead of reacting, really think about how I want to respond without going off the cliff? Being able to maintain confidence without ignoring it. So again, people take those cues on how I show up, and they're going to go, is this someone who I can follow? Is this someone I want to stay away from? You know, I mean, it's just like, how do I want to be? How do I want to be with others? And then once I can manage my own emotions, I practice personal agency, I up my emotional intelligence, then I can support others. You know, how do I communicate clearly and consistency? How do I create a safe environment in which people feel comfortable talking with me about their concerns? Create an environment where I feel comfortable asking them, "Hey, tell me what's going on, Bill. Sally, I haven't heard from you for a while. How do you like this new change?" And it's not to suck people down into the void, but bringing people up. You know, the other thing, because I love to solve problems. Maybe you do too. It's like I love this piece. Listen before solving. Because somebody will have something half out of their mouth and I'm going, "Oh, I know what the solution is. Let's do this." And I haven't even finished listening to them. And how do I just be quiet and say, "Hey, tell me what's going on," before I start trying a solution? And sometimes people just need to be listened to. They don't need my solutions. They can figure it out for themselves. I might say, "Hey, do you want some suggestions?" But I don't have to solve it for them. Sometimes it's better to have them solve their own. You're there to support or to advise or to coach, but listening first, because invariably where I think they're going is not where they're going. It's like, Susan, if you would have stopped talking and just listened, they were going someplace else. And then being, of course, modeling the behaviors that you want to see. And so if all of you can say, "You know what, we're in this together," it's that social part of change also. So people don't have to feel like they're all alone. They're all by themselves. It's like, "You know what, everyone else is getting AI. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't get it." And then we isolate people. How do we bring them in? Saying, "Yeah, you know what, I'm a little nervous too. Don't know where this is going, but together we're going to get there." Support each other, because it's that old adage, it takes a village. It really does. If we're going to be successful, let's support each other. Let's listen to each other, you know. So it works a whole lot better. So with that said, I have 3 takeaways and a call to action. And so the first takeaway is to understand that resistance is normal. All of us are resistant. It doesn't matter what the change is. Our initial response is going to be resistance, because it's in our DNA to say, "Is this fight or flight time? What actions do I need to take to save myself?" It's just natural response. We know it's going to happen, so we can prepare for it. It's not anything that anybody's done wrong, anything else. And so resistance, remember, also is information. Something I need to look at. Reframing the change in building agency, right? How do I need to reframe this in my head? Can I look at the positives instead of the negatives? How about as a team? How can this, new software or new reorg or whatever it is, how can that help us? How can we move forward? Because agency is powerful. That's the control of ourselves, understanding ourselves, thinking before we respond. And then consistency in habits. Like I said, it might take more than 30 days, because it's easy to slide back going, "Oh, I'll do it my old way today because it's just faster and I don't have time. I'll worry about doing something different later." No, how do we consistent and break it up in pieces, you know? Break it up. It's like I can't just incorporate AI into everything I do, but let's take it maybe one piece at a time. So your call to action is, what one action are you going to take Well, this week you could do it on the weekend. It's Friday already. But maybe next week, to help you get through change or help someone else's get through change, after we've been going through all this material. So I'm curious. I love it, Rowan. Keep reminding myself I have two ears and one mouth for good reason. That is well said. Yes. I have to remind myself that too. Susan, be quiet. I'd love to know what is the one thing you got from this webinar that is like, God, I want to remember that. I mean, this isn't probably anything new, but love to hear from you. W.C. Field says, take the bull by the tail and face the situation. I hadn't heard that one. That's interesting. Others, love to hear from you. If nothing else, kind of thinking about, gee, what actions do I need to take? Remind myself resistance is natural. It is. And it's easy to forget that. And easy to forget that, oh, I'm probably the only one resistant. Nobody else is. Everybody is. It's just at a different level. Always learning new things to stay on top. Yes. Resistance is information. Yes, Robert, you will get a copy of the slides for sure. Natural defense mechanism, action positive. The part I can adapt. Yes, yes. Resiliency, learn skill, acceptance. Yeah, looking for the positives about the change and focus. It's amazing. It does really work. And it's also based on research. Not that I was going to give you any theory, but for personal attestment and others, it really, you start looking for the positive, it's amazing how it can kind of change your world. Yeah, slow down, Oh, I love that, Courtney. Slow down, be patient with myself, because I can beat myself up better than anybody else can because I'm really good at it. But being patient with myself and others, that is awesome. That is awesome. So you can keep putting in the chat. Resilience is what I try and teach the children. Yes. Yeah, for sure. I am going to any other questions. It was a joy to be with you on this Friday. And any questions that you want to ask, and this is just a slide on upcoming classes that we have. We do have a day class on building resiliency to change. We also have OCM, if you want to get into more of a little bit more theory, developing successful interpersonal skills, expanding your emotional intelligence, which just some food for thought, planting those seeds. And any other questions? Thank you. Thank you so much for being with me and taking a whole hour out of your day to listen, and also to participate. I like that, how you were putting a lot of things in the chat. Yep, consistency is key. Takes more than 21 days. Yes, yeah. So with that, Mariella, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Absolutely, Dr. Heidorn. We actually did have one question earlier in the
Oh, okay.
session, and I believe it was in response to some of the prompts that you were throwing at the chat, which again, thank you so much to our amazing audience for throwing in some responses.
Yes.
One of the questions was, what will it take for my team to own the change?
To own the change. I don't know how long it'll take you. Everything is individual, but thinking about maybe focusing on them identifying what they can control, what they can contribute to, and looking for resistance that you can address, and then just seeing if you can change their mindsets as well. What's positive about this? How did this change help you today? Maybe you do it every day. It's kind of like counting your blessings. Count the positives. Hey, how did it help you today? Or if anybody shares tips, a lot of times when you learn something new, somebody goes, "Oh, something." It's like, and be able to share it. Be there for each other, though. That's going to be huge. That's really going to be huge because it does take a
100%.
village.
Yeah, it takes a village and it also takes a lot of support, right?
Yep.
Checking in 100%.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, I believe that covers it. We got just a lot of amazing insights. So thanks again for taking some time to drop some info in the chat, everyone. These are fantastic insights. And I did go ahead and drop in a couple of links for everyone. A little bit more about watermark learning, a little bit more about building resilience to change, and if you're game for our next webinar, leading through ambiguity, turning uncertainty into strategic advantage. So, thank you again for everyone joining us today. And as always, thank you so much, Dr. Heidorn.
Oh, you are most welcome, and everybody have a wonderful weekend. It looks like it's going to be nice in Minnesota, so wherever you are, I hope you have wonderful weather.
Likewise over here. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your week and have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.